Why did the Patriots win this game? Well, number one, C.J. Stroud had 4 interceptions. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10s for Monday, the playoff edition. Well, we had 4 games this weekend, a couple on Saturday, a couple on Sunday, and they were similar in the sense that one was overtime game, super exciting the whole way through. And then the other two, the teams that won took kind of control by the fourth quarter and wrapped it up. So a couple of different types of games, but they were all good to watch, fun to watch. If your team won, obviously. Otherwise, if you're a Buffalo fan, a lot of them are pretty hot right now over a couple of the calls that were made in that game, especially the fact that they were so late in the game that they happened. But we'll talk about those. So we'll talk about the 4 games. We'll start with the AFC. And I'll give you my top 10 reasons why each team won and the other team lost. So we will start with that Buffalo Bills versus the Denver Broncos. Honestly, I didn't think Buffalo would even score 30 points. They did, but 30 was not enough to win this game. They ended up losing 33-30 to the Denver Broncos in Denver. Wow, it was quite a game. You know, Denver's supposed to have one of the best defenses, and they could not stop Buffalo for the most part. But Buffalo couldn't stop Denver either. That was the problem. So let's look at these top 10s and see kind of what happened in this game. Well, the first one is, number 1, Bo Nix's clutch late game execution. Man, and how bad for the Broncos to find out that your star quarterback is out for the rest of this season, whether they make it to the Super Bowl or not, with his ankle being fractured. Wow, that was just a devastating news. Nix did deliver when the Broncos needed him most, especially on that final overtime drive when he making the key throws that he needed to make to get the team into scoring range. It was a big game for him. Let's look at the stats here for the 2 quarterbacks. And they were very similar, honestly. Wow, very similar. Bo Nix, 26 completions on 46 attempts for 279 yards. That's 6 yards in attempts, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, had a quarterback rating of 87.1. He was not sacked in this game. Bo Nix was not sacked at all. Josh Allen, 25 for 39 for 283 yards, so 4 more yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, but he had 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. He had a quarterback rating of 90, so very similar numbers there. But those numbers were a little deceiving because this is one of the key things to me. Number 2, Buffalo's 4 costly turnovers. Josh Allen committed 4 turnovers, including the overtime interception by Chris McMillan. That was, of course, anytime you're going to throw an interception in overtime, it's a killer. And that set up Denver's winning field goal. Obviously, that's the biggest single factor. Unless you're a Buffalo fan and you're going to say it's the penalties that happened at the end there that gave them that opportunity. But Buffalo didn't just turn the ball over. Denver did a good job of forcing Allen to make some bad decisions. You know, they kind of rotated their defense from a too high into what called a robber look, where they make it look like one thing. He thinks that's what it is, and he goes with that, and they switch over, and that's where they got their interceptions. They kind of fooled him. And it worked, you know. I mean, obviously, Allen did quite well, but in key moments for Denver, they got Allen into making a mistake. You know, and the fact that Buffalo almost won this game is amazing, considering you have 4 turnovers when you have 4 turnovers, you generally do not win this game. And the fact that they came very close to winning is pretty impressive. Number 3, and this is one of the key things. Again, Buffalo's untimely penalties. Man, late in the fourth quarter drive by Denver, the Buffalo Bills had a couple of key penalties that extended the drives for Denver, and they were terrible. It allowed the Broncos into field goal range to tie and then later to win the game. Now, I know when you watch the penalty, it was a penalty. That one right there near the 5-yard line, the Buffalo Bill defender had him by the arm, forcing him to try to catch that ball with one arm. That's a personal foul. The timing is terrible, obviously. And honestly, the defender should have just taken the chance to let him catch the ball and hope he didn't catch it, because if you're caught for pass interference, they get the ball right down there which is what happened. They got the ball down near the 5 and they just kick a nice simple field goal. If he catches it, you have the same effect. So why not just let him try to hope he doesn't catch it instead of interfering with him, So you're taking the chance that you're not going to get caught. He was caught with pass interference, and that's a tough break. Like I said, the timing was terrible for Buffalo. Will Lutz, perfect kicking under pressure. That's number 4. Kicked, the 23-yarder, he better make that. That's just a chip shot. But he did make field goals earlier in the game as well to keep the team in the game. So really good kicking on his part. Matt Prater made 3 field goals. He made, 3 points after touchdowns and 2 field goals, both within 30 to 39. And he made a 50-yarder, exactly 50 yards, Prater did. Will Lutz had 3 PATs and 4 field goals, 4 for 4 in field goals. One of those was also 50-yarders, so they both made a 50-yarder on the nose, which, they should be making. But that's another key that almost cost Denver the game, was the fact that it's not on my top 10, but, kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns almost cost them this game. They scored touchdowns on a couple of those field goals. This game's put away by them, but they couldn't do that. Number 5, Denver's red zone efficiency. Well, Buffalo did move the ball pretty well overall. 448 yards for Buffalo to 355 for Denver. But the Broncos capitalized better in the scoring positions. They scored more times, and they turned the drives into points instead of mistakes, which is what cost Buffalo ultimately. Another key was the fact that the Broncos in the first half, this is number 6, put up 20 points in the first half. And wow, was that a mistake by Josh Allen right there. Denver scores a touchdown. There's only, 20 seconds to go. And Josh Allen takes off with the ball, and he's carrying it like just here, knock it out of my hands. He fumbles that ball and gives the Broncos 3 extra points right before the half. It went from 10-10 to 17-10 to 20-10, just like in 20 seconds. Denver put up 10 extra points right before the half, which then obviously put Buffalo in the position of having to make a comeback again. Number 7, the Broncos kept their cool when Buffalo lost theirs. The penalties are what I'm talking about late in the game. Miscommunication, which causes turnovers. Just some bad situational football, like, for example, whatever Josh Allen was thinking when he ran that, took off running like that. Just the Broncos just stayed in the game. Honestly, they looked a little bit shaky in the very beginning, but after that, they got down to it and they just played. They didn't panic after losing the lead, and they just kept putting the pressure on Buffalo, and ultimately it turned over into penalties by Buffalo and turnovers. Number 8, Denver's defense tightened in key moments. Now, that's sort of true. I mean, I said that, but man, like I said, on the other hand, you're supposed to be one of the best defenses and you give up 30 points. And honestly, I didn't think that would happen, but they did. But, they did force Buffalo into a long field goal, that 50-yarder. They did create 4 turnovers, and they held strong on critical downs, especially in overtime, when they, did put a lot of pressure. They pinned Buffalo down at the 8-yard line at one point. And so, in key moments, the defense did show up. You get 4 turnovers, you had to do something. Number 9, the field position battle in overtime. When Denver had to punt, they pinned Buffalo deep. And this is what turned it into that risky throw that Allen made, the game-changing interception at the end there. And then that just allowed Denver to have a short field coming back to kick that winning field goal. That was amazing. That interception, I know I just take it for credit that the announcers bring on the ref on the TV show, during the game when they're reviewing it and they're trying to figure out, did the Buffalo Bill guy catch it? And if he did, was he down or was it an interception? So I take the word of the guy up in the booth, the official up in the booth, saying, yes, that was a interception or it wasn't an interception. Generally, why would he decide to go one way or the, just intentionally sabotage Buffalo? He wouldn't. So I take his word. If he says that's a interception, it's an interception. I mean, it was such a close play and a crazy play. And who knows, it's possible if they just called that a catch and not an interception, that it's very possible that the Buffalo Bill guy ends up with a reception. I mean, it was a close play. But I'm going to take the word of the official up in the booth and say, well, I guess it was an unfortunate mistake for Buffalo and very fortuitous for Denver that the defender was able to pull that ball away from him and get that interception, because that was a key. All right. Number 10, Buffalo's missed opportunities despite the fact that they had the statistical edge. The Bills had more plays, 78-68. They had more yards, 448-355. They had more first downs, 27-20. But they lost. And it was the turnovers, the penalties, and situational failure that cost them this game. So they lost the game despite winning the statistics. It was a rough game. If you're Buffalo, you just hate it. And obviously they hate it anyway. Their goal was the Super Bowl. They've had enough of these games in the early rounds getting knocked out that they were ready to move on to the next round, and they couldn't do it. So another year down for them, and they're just like the rest of the teams in the playoffs, they're out. And the Denver Broncos are in. So they win this game 33-30. Now next week they play with a backup quarterback, so against the Patriots. Wow, that will be some game to see. It will be in Denver, but that's going to be a rough game for them, I think, for Denver, that is. But we'll talk about that later. All right, next game up is the San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this game, this was all San Francisco. I mean, all Seattle. I'm sorry, all Seattle. They just were overmatched San Francisco. The fact, I'll just say this one positive for San Francisco. The fact that they made it this far at all is pretty good considering what has been happening to their teams. And I've talked about this. But I think going into Seattle, they finally just ran out of steam. They just didn't have the firepower offensively or defensively to keep up with Seattle. And Seattle is just way overmatched San Francisco in this game. And they walked away with an easy win. Now we'll see how easy it again. Not only did they play San Francisco 3 times, they'll now play the Rams 3 times. So this will be should be a pretty good game. Though, there's always a possibility. I think if anybody blows anybody out in this game next week, it'll be Seattle blowing out the Rams. But we'll see what happens. That's next week. Now, why did Seattle win this game? Number one, Seattle, right? The opening kickoff. Rashid Shaheed runs it back for 95 yards. And it's a touchdown right off the bat. And did you see the kicker try to stop him by sticking his leg out? How crazy is that? He could have really hurt himself, not so much the runner. But yeah, that kind of set the tone right there. I think San Francisco was hoping they could slow the pace down, kind of control the ball, and all of a sudden they're down 7-0 right off the bat. And it went that way the rest of the game. That opening kickoff rewrote the game's script, and the 49ers were playing from behind the whole time. By the end of the first quarter, they're down 14-0. Halftime, they're down 24-6. And that is a game. Playing from a negative game script is not a game that the 49ers had a chance to win. Number 2, Seattle's defensive front controlled the line of scrimmage. The Seahawks defensive line just dictated this entire game what the 49ers could do or not do. They forced turnovers. One was a fumble. I mean, they just consistently were pressuring Purdy the entire game. Purdy was only sacked twice, but he was running for his life most of the time. His pocket was not clean. It was forcing him to make bad throws when they could even throw the ball. It was just a rough game for him. In this game, the 2 quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, 15 completions on 27 attempts for only 140 yards. That's 5 yards an attempt. No touchdowns, 1 interception. Like I said, sacked 2 times. Had a quarterback rating of 54.6. That's what Seattle's defense did to him. And then Sam Darnold, on the other hand, only threw the ball 17 times, but had 12 completions, only 124 yards. That was 7 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown, had a quarterback rating of 110.9. It wasn't so much the passing game that won this game for the team. It was just their overall defense and their overall passing and running and just controlling this game. By the halftime, it was pretty much over, and their goal, the Seattle, was just to continue to run this game, run this clock out, and get the game over with. Number 3, Kenneth Walker III forced the 49ers out of their what they wanted to do. Walker ran for 116 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Just an excellent game for him. And really, the 49ers just couldn't stop him. 19 carries for 116 yards. That's 6 yards a carry, 6.1 yards a carry. And his longest run was only 15 yards. So he was just making consistently decent yardage on first down, whatever down it was on, Number 4, Sam Darnold played within his structure and didn't give the ball away. And that's all they didn't need Sam Darnold to be the hero in this game. In fact, he wasn't. He only, like I said, threw the ball 17 times, had 12 completions. That's all he had to do. He just needed to not make a mistake. He kind of had some interception issues, but no interceptions, a high quarterback rating, threw the 1 touchdown, and he made good decisions when he threw the ball, and it was mistake-free, and that's what Seattle needed from Sam Darnold, and that's what he gave him. Number 5, Seattle's early down efficiency put the 49ers in conflict. Like I said, primarily with Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet had 5 carries for 20 yards, but Seattle consistently was, after first down, they were running for 4 to 6 yards on first down. So they were playing second and third down with, short yardage situations. It made it easy for them. But again, only 124 yards. But Cooper Kupp, 5 catches for 60 yards. He had half the yardage. Smith-Njigba, 3 catches for 19 yards. And then Kenneth Walker had another 3 catches for 29 yards. So between his rushing and receiving, he had 145 yards. Really impressive for him. It's not like they put up a ton of yards all around, but the Seattle Seahawks, that is, they had 175 yards rushing. So that was really where they dominated the game. And that's how you can run the clock out much more easily. Number 6, the 49ers were too injured to compete. They were just so banged up. And they just couldn't get anybody to stay on the field all season. They get Kittle back. He goes out in the first playoff game. It was just sad to watch in a lot of ways. And so you got a lot of backups who just didn't have the same abilities that the starters did. There was the hope that Fred Warner would have came in and played. He tried to start working out, but he just wasn't ready. So he was ruled out in this game for the 49ers. It would have helped, but honestly, the Seahawks were just too much. I don't care if they had Kittle and Warner back in playing. I don't think it would have mattered. I think Seattle would have won the game with relatively ease. Number 7, Seattle's coverage just took away all the explosive plays for the 49ers and Purdy. I mean, he couldn't get anything down deep. His longest pass was 19 yards. They just forced him to throw short or intermediate passes and then move the ball down the field that way. And they couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it, having to move at that rate. I mean, they only scored 6 points in this game. And just 2 field goals. It was too much to ask San Francisco to move down the field little by little. They just didn't have the offense to do something like that. McCaffrey had a better game than he did a couple of weeks ago when he only had 23 yards, but still, it wasn't anywhere near what they needed from him as the big star on the team. He did his best, but he had 11 carries for only 35 yards. That's just over 3 yards a carry. And he had 5 catches for 39 yards. So he gave it his best, but really they just only ended up with 74 total yards. And when if you're Seattle, that McCaffrey's the guy. And you put so much pressure on him, it just makes it such a hard thing to do. So Seattle just stopped the 49ers from having any explosive plays. Number 8, Seattle's play calling stayed aggressive even when they had the lead. That was key. I hate it. I just hate it when a team thinks they have a lead that's big enough. You just have to keep putting on the pressure, acting as if this game is close, and you play the game that you should be playing. You stay aggressive, and Seattle did that. They took the calculated shots. They stayed unpredictable on second down. They just didn't run, and they were aggressive, and it paid off. They never gave 49ers a chance to get back into this game. Seattle wins in all 3 phases of the game. They had that special teams touchdown. They scored 41 points. The defense only gave up 6. So when you win all 3 phases, you generally win the game. Number 10, Seattle played like a team with a Super Bowl on the line, and San Francisco didn't. That may be a little unfair because San Francisco just wasn't the same team. But Seattle, I think they can look at their team and they can say, who's better than we are? Who's better than the Seattle Seahawks right now in the playoffs? I don't know. I mean, this to me looks like Seattle versus the Patriots, but we'll see what happens in the Super Bowl. But Seattle has definitely a top-notch team, which is why they ended up really putting it to the 49ers 41-6. All right, let's move on to our next game, which is the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots. Now, here's a game that was fairly close, to start with, but New England was up 21-10 at halftime, still within range because Houston had been known to come back from some games. And so, there was a chance, but Houston couldn't do it. And the only thing they could do in the second half was a couple field goals in the third quarter to tighten the game up. It ended up after three quarters, it was 21-16. So it was close. But in the fourth quarter, the Patriots get that touchdown to put the game out of reach. Why did the Patriots win this game? Well, number one, C.J. Stroud had 4 interceptions. One was a pick six to Marcus Jones. That, derailed an offense that wasn't one of the better offenses in the first place. So to give up 4 interceptions just was too much for Houston to overcome. And Stroud, man, he looked rattled, and some of the passes he threw were unbelievable. I just really didn't see it. I mean, his numbers were horrendous. 20 completions on 47 attempts. That's well under 50% for 212 yards, 4.5 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown pass, but 4 interceptions, sacked 3 times, had a quarterback rating of 28. 28. Terrible. Drake May, on the other hand, 16 completions on 27 attempts for 179 yards. That's 6.6 yards an attempt. 3 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. He was sacked 5 times. Houston's defense did get to him, but he had a quarterback rating of 100.7. Stroud, he really did not show up well in this game. And, the Patriots baited him into throwing some of these passes by their coverage, and he took the bait, and then they intercepted him. Well, number 2 is just continuation on that. The Patriots forced 5 total turnovers, 4 interceptions, and a fumble. And that pick six really changed the game. Number 3, the Patriots' defensive adjustments after early drives. So the Patriots didn't start the game early. They didn't start off gung-ho on their defense. In fact, I was a little surprised how easily it seemed to be that Houston was moving the ball. But the Patriots defense made some adjustments and, kind of disguised their defense a little bit better. And it forced Stroud to hold the ball a little longer and make some bad throws or get sacked. He made it, he only was sacked a couple of times, but when you throw the ball 47 times but only have 20 completions, that's just you throwing the ball away or just making some really bad throws. Number 4, the Patriots controlled the field position the whole game. Between the takeaways, the special teams, the stall drives of Houston, New England consistently were starting their possessions, in good field position just from the start. So it really worked in their favor in that area. Number 5, New England's pass rush affected Stroud without needing to sack him. And that's what I was saying earlier. They only sacked him 3 times, but so much pressure on him was forcing him to make bad passes. So 3 sacks, 4 interceptions, and he had 27 incomplete passes. So he was just trying to get rid of the ball, trying to run around, throwing off platform throws, rushing passes or having to make a late decision and the pockets collapsing. And it just harassed him endlessly, and he didn't hold up to it. Number 6, Drake May's 3 touchdown passes. Now, on the other hand, Drake May, like I said, he wasn't perfect. He did have an interception, was sacked 5 times, but for the most part, he stayed poised. He looked the more poised quarterback in this game. Number 7, Texans failed to capitalize on May's mistakes, which is what I was saying. He did fumble it 4 times, but he only had 2 that he lost. And the bad thing for Houston was only one of those fumbles turned into a touchdown. They could not capitalize on the mistakes that May made, and ended up costing them. Number 8, the weather neutralized Houston's speed advantage. Because of the fact that New England plays in this weather more often, they're a little bit more used to it. Number 9, Patriots' red zone execution outclassed Houston's. New England was able to finish drives for the most part with touchdowns, while Houston continually stalled. They had to kick in the third quarter, kicking 2 field goals instead of at least getting 1 touchdown out of that. And it cost them. They could not get back into the game on the field goals. And their defense held out for as long as they could, but finally by the fourth quarter, the defense could only do so much. They give up that fourth quarter touchdown to New England, and that's the game. And number 10, Mike Vrabel's identity took over this game. He's just wants to play a physical type of play, and not that Houston doesn't. They are physical as well. But they take every opportunity they can. They use it. Vrabel will take advantage of an opportunity when it happens. And they just punished the mistakes that Houston made and ended up winning this game. Let's look at our last game. This game was a wild game too. The Rams versus the Chicago Bears. The Rams won this game 20-17, and I didn't think they were going to win it, to be honest with you. It was crazy. This was a wild game. For a game that only was 20-17, it was a wild game. Why did the Rams win this game? Number 1, Cam Curl's overtime interception. This was the biggest mistake that Williams made and the key to the game. Caleb Williams, on third down in overtime, throws a fairly long pass to DJ Moore. DJ Moore, and it wasn't clear, the announcers didn't know either exactly what happened, but he didn't track the ball, but Cam Curl, the defender, did, and he picked it off. It was a great interception, honestly, diving to the ground and catching it. I wasn't even sure at the time whether he'd actually caught it, but on replay, he did. And that cost the Bears the game, because Matthew Stafford came right back down with the ball after that, because Stafford had the ball already. The Rams had the ball to start off, and I honestly, I don't care if I was in my own end on fourth down. If I was the Rams, I would have probably went for it, because I would have been afraid to give the Bears back the ball. But the Rams didn't. In overtime, they were 3 and out. They punted, and Chicago had the ball, but then they made that interception. So Matthew Stafford, when he got the ball back after the interception, he stayed calm. He was like a veteran, threw a 16-yard pass to Puka Nacua. They got within range, and they just kicked the field goal to win the game. It was amazing. So number 3 is the Bears' first overtime defensive stop was wasted. And it was. Like I said, they forced the Rams, who won the chance to get the ball first in overtime. The defense of Chicago forced the Rams into a 3 and out. And I honestly thought that's the game. That is the game. The Bears are going to go down, because they just did it before, at the end of the game, on a miraculous play, I'll say, but still they did it. And I thought they're just going to come down now. They got the momentum and they're going to win this game on a field goal or whatever, but they didn't. All right, number 4, Kyren Williams, fourth quarter TD. This was big, really big. In the fourth quarter, Williams was tough running in this game, and he went down, and they scored that touchdown play. That was on a 94, which is part of number 5, the 91-yard, 14-play statement drive. It's number 4 and 5. But number 4, with Williams running in this ball, his fourth quarter touchdown was just too easy. And, the Chicago's front had been stout, but they did crack at the worst possible time. And honestly, though, I sort of thought, why aren't you running it more on Chicago, to be honest with you? The pressure they were putting on Stafford was amazing, I thought, and why not try to run it? But they did in the fourth quarter, and it was a key. That number 5, the 91-yard, 14-play statement drive, that was their best offensive drive, of the night. 91 yards, 14 plays. It controlled the game, got their defense some rest, and so forth. It was a methodical drive that just changed the momentum to some degree. Number 6, the Rams defense limited explosive plays, except for that last play. Chicago's style is for Williams to run around and get some big chunk plays, but they didn't get as many as they often do, except that miracle late TD. So the Rams defense did hold them basically, except for that crazy play, to 10 points, and so they ended up with 17. But which is number 7. The Rams did survive that Caleb Williams wild game-tying TD. I mean, that was just absurd, off kilter, a late game touchdown to force overtime. And normally teams would just buckle. The Rams, it did not break their defensive spirit. You would have thought it could have. Really, that was just an amazing play, that touchdown pass to Kyle Kmet. But the Rams didn't fold. They regrouped, and they made the next big play in overtime. They got that interception in overtime. Number 8, Puka Nacua and Davante Adams made the key catches in this game. Man, they made some good catches. That one on the sideline by Adams was impressive. And Nacua, he caught a pass across the middle, and he just pushed his way into closer into field goal position. So in this game, looking at the quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford did not have neither quarterback actually had a good game. Matthew Stafford, 20 completions on 42 attempts for 258 yards. Was impressive on that long drive in the fourth quarter, and then the second time they had the ball in overtime. Sacked 4 times, only had a quarterback rating of 67.4. Caleb Williams, 23 completions on 42 attempts, so 3 more completions for 1 less yard, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. That was key right there, 3 interceptions. He had a quarterback rating of 59.3. So neither quarterback really played well in this weather. Their defenses were impressive for both teams, but ultimately it was the Rams defense that came out on top. And then, like I was saying, with Puka Nacua and Davante Adams making the key catches in this game, Puka Nacua was 5 catches for 56 yards, throwing the ball his way 10 times, but he had 5 catches. Davante Adams only had 2 catches for 24 yards. Both of them were for first downs. That was key, and one of them was just a huge catch. Kyron Williams, 4 catches for 30 yards, along with the fact that he had 21 carries for 87 yards. So he ended up with 107 yards total. So a good game from him. I thought he was one of the keys to me in this game, even more so than the receivers, was his ability to run. Number 9, better situational football. The Rams won this game on third downs, red zone execution, the turnover margin, and in overtime. The costly mistakes that Chicago made, especially that overtime interception, it really killed their chances. 3 interceptions by Williams was just too many. You can't expect to win a game when you have 3 interceptions. And they almost did, though. That's the crazy thing. They almost did. Number 10, final one, handling the brutal Soldier Field conditions. This was something I was a little worried about, except for Stafford, who played for the Lions, so he was used to this type of weather. Though you would think he would have had a better game, but his game was not too swift either in this. But the Rams handled the weather conditions, the cold, the wind. It was bad weather, and they held up fine in it. So we have our teams now. The 4 games are set. We're going to have the Denver Broncos playing the New England Patriots in Denver. And we'll have the Los Angeles Rams playing the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Those are our games coming up. All right. Appreciate you listening. Thank you for that. Appreciate all the subscribers. Please like and subscribe. You can find this podcast, the video version, on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. Audio you can find on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Again, I appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe, and I'll be back, I believe, on Wednesday for the next podcast. So everyone have a good day. We'll see you on Wednesday. I'm out for NFL Top 10s for Monday, playoff edition.